he is very, very clear that these little daydreams and the larger utopian thoughts that they inspire need to be mediated with the concrete circumstances that are around them. That if we think of the utopian potential in a daily act, that we, in order to get what he will call a really possible utopia, or what the more frequent term that he uses is the mediated novum, the new that is mediated with a concrete materiality. We need to take and do a reflexive movement back with our utopian image upon the concrete possible material structure in which we find ourselves. And in his longest work, The Principle of Hope, he will go through, and if you've ever looked at this book, it's 3 volumes, and it begins with a not a short, but comparatively to the rest of the work, an introduction of 200 pages, and then for the next 1,000 pages, literally, he will go on and say, here's what I think are the really existing utopian possibilities in pretty much every area of human endeavor: art, food, architecture, music, even film. It's a very, very exhaustive list. And he will go through this process over and over again. Here's the inspirational structure within our daily lives. Here's the daydream. Here's the utopian surplus, he will call it, within the daydream. And then he will go back and mediate his image with what he sees to be the concrete material possibilities. Now, the thing is, within this process, he acknowledges that there will be many fits and starts. There will be many suppositions of what a mediated novum will be, which will turn out to be not fruitful, not productive. Here, let me read a brief quote. Even if this brighter side also displays strongly displays negative aspects, those of substitution, overblownness, abstraction, which were jointed in the 19th century by the mendacity of the ideal. They are certainly not connected with the dark or sinister elements of the formation of the ideal. And so this process of mediation, he stresses, is a reiterated process, that utopia must come through a repeated process of mediation. And even if we think that we have created a utopia and a utopian image which falls in line with the material possibilities, which has been thoroughly mediated, he still says that with the possibility of fulfillment of utopia, there will be an accompanied, and he uses these 2 phrases over and over again, melancholy or pathos. That all utopias are partial. And this might seem like a contradiction, but Bloch insists on this, that this process of mediating our little daydreams, of creating a possible utopia, will always be accompanied by melancholy and pathos. Then again, then you could say, well, what's the point? We've gone through, and especially after you've read Principle of Hope, I've gone through 1,400 pages of this book. He's given me an exhaustive list of possible utopian images, possible utopian paths to take in our current culture. But at the end, we still will have an incompleteness. Well, what I find interesting is that not only in the introductory sections, the theoretical sections of this work, and my paper, I should have said, focuses primarily on this work, of the Principle of Hope, but also in the more concrete sections, he uses this term, the front, over and over again, the utopian front, that after creating utopian images, we gain not so much concrete images, concrete plans, possibilities for action, but we gain an orientation towards the future, towards the progressive future. And he calls this the front. And it's the front, this is a term which implies, definitely a indeterminate utopian attitude, but definitely moving forward. And in the process of going through this long process, he also, in noting the importance of the front, he notes that this will be work. And this is what I find most interesting, that building the front, that gaining an orientation towards the front will be work. And he uses phrases like the blissful work of explication, the blissful work of explication. He'll go on to say that all previous materialism, that's materialism that doesn't have this utopian aspect, lacks the constantly oscillating subject-object relation called work. And for me, this is really what the core of Bloch's thought is, not only when he was writing it, but for us today. Because, if the process of utopia is a process of constant creation, constant realization of imperfection, and we get this orientation towards the front, and we have to work towards it, then once again, what Bloch is presenting is an indeterminate understanding of what the possibility and potentiality of utopia is, but he also adds not only a concrete aspect, but what I see to be a consciously Marxist aspect. Because when he goes through and talks about work, the type of work that goes into this process is a process that mirrors closely to the snippets, to the fragments within Marx himself of what unalienated labor will look like. This process, this oscillating process, it's a dialectical process where we go from daydreams to the material. This process is a process that involves both the particular and the universal. We start with something within our daily lives, and then we project into a more universal future, not only in terms of time and place. And finally, what I find most intriguing about this concept of work, this concept of utopian work, is that it is a process of work that involves different understandings and different concrete actualities of work. It is an understanding of work that goes beyond the singular reified type of work that we experience within the division of labor, that it's a multiple type of work. And what is interesting and what I think is most fruitful in thinking about Bloch today is trying to see how creating utopias is not about any sort of plan, any sort of map to the future, but it's about gaining this orientation towards the front through a process which really gives us an understanding and a quasi-experience of unalienated labor. So, let me then turn to Derrida, because, and I think we need to turn to someone else, because even after this understanding of what utopia is, and not in the particularities of utopia, but in the process of creating utopia, many have criticized Bloch for still having a understanding of utopia that is mired in determinism, that is mired in speculation. And Darren Webb, who wrote a great book on Marxism in Utopia, states, whilst hidden beneath a bewilderingly complex set of categories, Bloch's method for distinguishing the concrete from the abstract and reactionary boiled down to nothing more than distinguishing between his own personal likes and dislikes. That, in fact, even Webb will go on to say that even positing utopia and saying that there is a understanding of utopian labor grounded in a Marxist anthropology, which has been criticized on many fronts, as probably we all know. That just positing some sort of end state actually saps the revolutionary creativity and the possibilities for praxis of a collective social movement, that would need to be the basis of a revolutionary party that would bring about a revolution.